Welcome back, everybody, to Contracting Business Basics. I'm your host, Lori Rawlings, the Executive Director of the Plumbing and Mechanical Contractors Association of Oregon, Southwestern Washington, and Northern California. And today we are going to be covering learning module number 8, which is bonding. So I would love to turn it over to our instructor, Hank Brancasio. Hank, welcome back.
Thanks, Lori. Glad to be back. The last learning module we did was insurance, and bonding is like insurance. It can be sold by an insurance agent, or you can get it from a bonding agent. It could be one and the same, or it could be somebody different. And I would tell you that if you're doing public work, you need to understand all about bonding. If it's private work, it's unlikely that you'll have to pull a bond on private projects. Public work, it's like goes hand in hand. I don't care if it's federal, state, city, county, all public work. I hate to say all, but most public work, you need a bond from that standpoint. Private work, in all my years of doing this, I don't remember if I ever pulled a bond on a private project. Most of it's public. So if you're not dealing with public work, maybe you'll never be involved with a bond, but it's hard nowadays. Even if you're a small startup contractor, it's hard to not bid a project that's a small city project, county project, state project, municipality project, and therefore you're going to need a bond. Always verify your bonding position with your bonding agent. That's important. And lien rights with your attorney. When you're on a public job and you're working for somebody, you need to understand what your lien rights are, because if you let this lapse, if you get to the point where I haven't been paid and I haven't really done anything with this, by the time you figure it out, it might be too late and you won't be able to file a lien to get your money. So it's important to understand that.
Hey, Hank, can you just give
Yes.
us a high-level overview of what a lien is and why your lien rights are important, especially on public jobs?
On a public building, or that where there's, as I said, most public projects, there's a bond. Now, you might be working as a subcontractor to a general contractor. The general contractor, they had to pull a bond on the project, and you may not have had to pull a bond because you're working as a subcontractor. Lien rights is the ability, and make it simple, you haven't been paid. You're on a job for 6 months, you got $100,000 in cost, and they're not paying you. And the GC keeps telling you, don't worry about it, I'll pay you, blah, blah, blah. At some point, you got to stop believing what he's telling you. And now you may need to file a lien. Now, on a public job, you typically cannot lien a public building. So let's say you're doing it on a city hall, you can't lien the city hall. It's just the laws do not allow you to do that. What you can do is you can lien the money. So you can lien the stream of money that's flowing from the municipality, from the state government to that general contractor. Now, here's where the lien right and timeliness of this occurs. Lien rights start with whoever files first, they're number one on the hit parade to get paid. Whoever files second, they're number two, and so on and so forth. So if you wait too long and 3 other contractors on the project have filed liens and you're now the 4th contractor, by the time they get to you, there may not be any money to pay you, and you're out all the money. If you file first, then you're on the number one hit parade, and therefore you have a better chance of being paid. Now, I've been involved with these projects where we were working for general contractors or working for somebody that went belly up or was going belly up, and we were out hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the timeliness of how we filed the lien really protected us and got us our money. And so this is not something you want to go, well, I know I haven't been paid in 6 months. I know I'm out $100,000, but the GC keeps telling me he's going to pay me. At some point you draw the line in the sand, and it's like, either I'm getting paid tomorrow or I'm going to file a lien. And understand this, when you file a lien on a private building or on the flow of cash on a public building, you are going to piss people off. But you know what? When it's $100,000 or $200,000 or $25,000, who cares at this point? That bridge is burned. That ship has left the station. You need to understand you're going to catch some flack over this one when you do it. And I have been involved with general contractors where private airport terminals were being built with a big airline. And you file a lien, like instantaneously, I got a phone call from an executive of the airline going, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm out $200,000. You're not helping me collect my money. I'm filing a lien. You want to fix the problem? Get on the phone with your general contractor and I'll pull the lien." It can get ugly very quickly. I have also been in a situation where I filed a lien on a public job. I wasn't getting paid. Nobody was getting paid, but I was first in line for filing a lien on payment stream. Ended up having lunch with another mechanical who was doing another piece of the work on this project. And they were like, "Hank, I can't get paid." And I said, "Why is that?" They said, "Because you filed the lien in front of me." And I said, "Oh, well, too bad, because I'm getting my money first." So it's important. It's kind of an interesting thing. Get with your attorney. If you've got an attorney that can collect money and he's a good attorney, they will look at this and they will guide you through this very effectively. And so that's where the lien rights come in. And you want to be the first on the lien rights. I've also been involved on projects where the company that was trying to finish the job, because the general contractor went out of business, called me and said, "I'd like to meet with you. You seem to know what you're doing. Can you help us finish this project?" And I got paid for that. So I think it's kind of interesting. Bonds and bonding and lien rights, if you're on top of this, can really help you collect your money.
Thanks. That's really helpful.
So objectives, we're going to talk about the different types of bonds used in a construction business. Understand what affects your cost of a bond. These are not free. That's the other part of it. And you need to understand, hey, wait a minute. I'm bidding a job that requires a bond. It's got a 2-year warranty. This is not something you want to go, "Wow, how much can that be?" You're going to need to know what that is so you can include that in the estimate, and then how bonds work in a construction business. So the easy one to understand, the one that's probably talked about the most, is a bid bond. It's a guarantee. A bond is a guarantee. When do I use a bid bond? So I'm bidding a municipal building that's owned by the city of Portland. We'll just pick on them as an example. And I need to get a bid bond. I need to provide a bid bond on this public project. And it just means, real simple, let's say it's a $50,000 project. It means you will stand by your bid bond. You have to have it. It's included with the bid. So number one on a hit parade is you got to make sure you understand in the specification all the paperwork that needs to be submitted with your bid. So you might be submitting a proposal. You might be submitting a number of different documents that municipality needs you to submit, along with a bid bond. And you would call your bonding agent, whoever it might be, say, "Hey, I'm bidding this project. I need a bond for this." And they can do that pretty quickly and easily. Here's what it means. If you decide to walk away from this bid, you lose the bid bond. So a bid bond might be 10% of the bid price. So it might be $5,000. So that means you lose $5,000. Not only do you lose the money, it doesn't go over really good with the bonding company, because that means you've defaulted on your bond. Why would you ever do this? It can happen if you bid a job and oops, I find a mistake. I bid 50,000 and I left 20,000 out of the job. So now you're at, well, I can do the job, but there's no way I'm making up 20 grand on a $50,000 bid, or I can walk away from it. And yes, it's going to cost me some money, but guess what? I can't afford to lose $20,000. It's as simple as that. Now, sometimes on a public job, I've seen this happen. When you make a mistake, you can go to the municipality and go, "I screwed up." And they will let you out of the bid and they will not take your bid bond. But that doesn't happen very often. So you just need to be sure that you understand, one, is a bid bond required, and understand it's a guarantee that you're going to take the contract for what you bid, not, whoops, I made a mistake and I don't need it anymore. So go bid bond. So now you've bid the job. and you win the job. You're low, you get the job, and now they say, well, now we need a performance bond. So a performance bond, again, typically required on public jobs, public projects, and it guarantees you're going to do the work. So let's say it's a $50,000 job, and it says you're guaranteeing you're going to do the plumbing work on this project. So should you default, we take the bond, and we use that bond to pay somebody else to finish your project. It's about the simplest way for me to explain it from that standpoint. So that's what a performance bond is. Again, so you got bid bond when you're bidding the job, performance bond when you're doing the job. There might also be in that performance bond a payment bond. So this type of bond protects the owner if their contractor fails to pay vendors and subcontractors. This is important to understand if you're working as a subcontractor to a general contractor and they had to pull a payment bond or a performance bond. It means you can go after the general for your money by filing a lien against his bond. Again, get with your attorney. Every scenario is different. You want to understand what that is. This can help your business if you're working as a subcontractor. I will tell you, there was a state I did some work in long time ago that their bid bond, state work, was a special bond that converted from a bid bond to a payment bond, or a bid bond to a performance bond. We missed it and missed out on about $300,000 worth of work. It's a very unique state that I'm not going to tell you which state it is, but it was a state in the specification, all the paperwork up front. It said, okay, you need this type of bid bond that converts to a performance bond. We missed it, lost the job, lost out on like $300,000 worth of work. I was not a happy camper when that happened. Salesman completely missed it. But the three main bonds are bid bond, performance bond, and payment bond. Factors affecting bond costs. So bid bonds, tied to bid price. A $10,000 bid and $1 million bid is going to change that bid bond cost. Where is the project located in terms of municipality? Your history and the owner's history. For small stuff, it's typically just a flat fee that you're paying for this bid bond. The big money is in the performance bonds, which is tied to the contract amount. So now you're bidding a $50,000 job or are you bidding $1 million job is going to affect the price of that bond. Again, your financials, how much revenue you do, length of warranty. Most performance bonds look at it as a 1-year warranty, but let's say you have a 2-year warranty, which happens from time to time. We want a 2-year warranty. That impacts the cost of that bond. Credit issues that you may have, financial deficiency. There's a variety of things that affect. You got to get with your bonding agent to understand that. Typical performance bond can be 1 to 5% of the contract amount. It's not a little number. You bid $1 million job, depending on the situation, your bond cost could easily be $25,000. And don't forget this, put it in the estimate because it's a cost you're incurring. It's no different than buying a piece of equipment or buying material or labor on a job. It can impact it. If you have a bad track record, bad financials, let's say you're a little contractor. I'm going to just say it's easier to understand it. Let's say you're a contractor that most of the time your contracts are $50,000 to $100,000. And all of a sudden you decide to bid a $4 million project. Your bond cost is going to be high. And if let's say it's a 2-year warranty, it's going to be high. And let's say you're bidding against another contractor who does multi-million-dollar projects all the time. His bond cost is going to be much lower than your bond cost. Simple as that. When I worked for Johnson Controls, because when we pulled a bond, we were a $40 billion company. My bond cost was incredibly low compared to what mechanical contractors pay for a bond. So all of that comes into play. It's not so straightforward to think, oh, here's this multi-million-dollar job. I'm going to go chase this Well, you better go check with your bonding agent, because the bonding agent may say to you, that job is too big for you. I cannot bond you on that project. You're asking me to bond you on an $8 million job, and the biggest job you've ever done is $750,000. They may not be able to bond you, or They can bond you, but it's going to cost you a ton of money to get bonded. It's as simple as that. Okay, who do you buy bonds from? You buy them from bonding agents representing a surety company. Many insurance agents. So the first place to start, if you've never done it before, is go to your insurance agent and say, can you sell me a bond? If they can, great, problem solved. If you can't, you may have to find a bonding agent. When I did it, I had a company that was solely a bonding agent. They didn't do anything else other than bonding, and they were great to work with. They were always good to work with. And the bonding agent, again, because so much of bonding is tied back to your financial record, if I wanted a big bond, they'd call my bank. They'd call people to verify. They'd call my accounting firm. How they doing? How's their cash flow? Are they a good risk? Because in essence, it's a guarantee you're going to do the job. So if it's a small project, it's usually not a problem. If it's a complicated, big job, it can be an issue from that standpoint. Read the specs. If you're bidding a public job, in the specifications, there will be a section about bonding requirements. Make sure you understand what those bonding requirements are. Make sure you understand, oh, it's a 2-year warranty, because that affects the bond. Be sure to know what the bond costs are and put it in the estimate. $1 million job, your bond cost could be 10 grand, could be $25,000. You don't want to forget about this and go, uh-oh, I left $10,000 out or $15,000 out. And then finally, as I mentioned before, bond costs for a large mechanical with strong financials could be significantly lower than a small contractor with bad financials. Lori, any questions?
Not at this point. I mean, I guess one thing I wonder about, it seems like bonds are a great idea. Why aren't they used more commonly in private sector work?
I think it's a cost issue. There's some paperwork involved with it. And I think, if a private hospital is building a large addition, let's just pick a $20 million addition or $30 million addition, and they hire a general contractor to do that, expectation is that general is going to manage the subcontractors effectively, and therefore no bond required. Now, could an owner require a bond? They could, absolutely, they could. It doesn't happen very often. Maybe if they're using an out-of-town general, maybe it would come up. I'm trying to think of, in all my years of doing private work, was there ever a situation where a bond was required by me on a private project? And, for the life of me, just nothing's jumping out. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. It's not like they can't do it, but there's a cost involved. So just imagine if you're doing $1 million contract and your bond cost is $10,000 as an example. Just imagine you're the general and you're $30 million. Their bond cost could be pretty high. And so it's an added cost that maybe a lot of owners don't want to require. Now, I will say this much. If you're starting out as a new company and you take on a big project right away through a general contractor, the general may not have been bonded, but he could say to you, I want you to pull a bond because this is a big job for you and I don't have a track record with you. And so they could say, we want you to pull a bond. So that could happen as well from that standpoint. But I think there are some steps you need to take if you're pulling a bond on a project, things you need to know about. Get with your surety agent or insurance agent, who's ever selling you the bond, understand how that works. Now, once you've been in business for a number of years, this becomes pretty routine. Somebody with the estimators would call the surety company, hey, I'm bidding this job. I'm bidding it next Tuesday. I need a bond, no problem. Get me the information. It's all kind of done over the telephone. And then they'll fax you or email you the bond, or they'll mail you the bond, because a lot of times you have to have the original. So they'll FedEx you the bond so that you have it on the morning of the bid. And so there are some logistical things you need to be aware of with a bond. And you also need to understand, if you're working for somebody and the job is a bonded project, let me get with my attorney because I'm not getting paid. I want to understand the ramifications of that and how I can protect my cash flow on a project. And again, if you file a lien on a bond, be prepared. You're going to piss somebody off in the process, because people don't like liens being filed on their building, and they sure don't like liens being filed on their contract. from that standpoint. Okay. If you are a second tier contractor working for a GC and you do not have a bond, but they do, we talked about this already, you can file a lien against them. And again, pertains mostly to public projects more than anything. I talked a little bit about this at the beginning. You need to understand what your lien rights are. And once you do that, your attorney can guide you through this process as best as possible. The important thing to understand is to read the specification, because everything related to the bonding is in the specifications on a public project. It'll tell you, you know, the bond has to cover, it's a 2-year warranty, which affects the bond cost. It's going to tell you, you need a bid bond. This is the kind of bid bond, needs to be on our form, needs to be on your form, et cetera, et cetera. All that information is in the specification. And just understand that there's a cost incurred when you're pulling a bond on a project, and that cost could get pretty pricey. So check with your bonding agent and explain to them that, hey, listen, I've got a project I'm bidding on. I'm not done with the estimate yet. Maybe that project is going to be, you know, more than 800,000 and less than 1.5 million. He should be able to give you a budget of what that is. And then keep this in mind, bonding cost is tied to strong financials. If you're a little contractor that's just starting out and you haven't bid a lot of big projects, you don't have a strong financial record, your cost might be higher than their cost for that bond. And so you're paying a little bit of a premium there. It's just kind of an FYI from that standpoint. And then finally, miscellaneous. If you're a second tier contractor working for a GC and you don't have a bond, but they do, understand what their bond rights are. Understand how you can file a lien should they not get paid. And don't wait too long on this one. Now, it may not be an issue because you're getting paid in a timely manner. You know the general contractor. He's a good guy. Everything's going well. But just kind of be aware that you need to understand when their lien rights expire, because sometimes if you wait too long, and it varies from project to project, when you're ready to file the lien because they owe you $100,000, it's too late. Lien rights have expired and you can't do it. So again, you want to check with their bonding people, you want to get your attorney involved with this. And again, I mentioned this earlier, many public projects, you can't file a lien on the building. It's just not allowed. It's not legal to do it. But you can file a lien on the payments made by the public entity. So you're liening this bucket of money that the public entity is paying the general contractor or paying whoever you might be working for. That's your only recourse. That's the only way to get your money back, but you can do it. And so again, if you file a lien, just be aware, some people are going to be a little bit ticked off over the whole thing, but that's okay because there's a lot of money involved and you don't want to lose out on that money.
Sounds great. Great reminder. One other question. So let's say I'm starting out and it's the first time I'm ever bidding on a public job that requires a bond, and I'm not the low bidder and I don't get the job. What happens to the bonds that I pulled?
Nothing. You would just have to let your surety company know, hey, you sent me a bid bond and I didn't get the project. They'll just ask you for an update. And so, you know, it's not the end of the world. So it's just like, hey, you know, hey, you bid. It seems like I remember he would send me like an email if I didn't let him know, hey, I posted a couple of bid bonds to you for these projects. What happened on these projects? Oh, I didn't get any of those projects, you know, from that standpoint. Or I'm getting the one project, but it's going to take 3 months or 2 months. And so eventually I'm going to need a performance bond for that project. And this is where it can come in, why you need to be communicating with your surety company. Because let's say you're bidding a lot of public work and it's big work, it starts to add up. So you might have the bonding capability, as an example, to bond up to 5 million. Well, that also means that if you've won a bunch of jobs totaling 5 million, the surety company wants to know about that, because that might limit what you can do tomorrow to bid another project, depending on how many bonds are pulled from your company. So again, key external partner, you need to be communicating with your surety company when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Sounds great. Well, thank you very much for
Great.
all this information. And we look forward to seeing everybody in the next learning module.